Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. You can call me Niku. I've been a closet otaku for all of my life, and it wasn't until my first solo trip to Japan in 2024 that I was reminded of my childhood dream of collecting anime and manga that I loved. And that's how my collecting journey started. It's 2025, the world was going crazy over Labubus and blind boxes, inflation continued to rise, anime and manga have become mainstream, and suddenly my algorithm on YouTube was inundated with videos of other people's anime and manga collections. Admiring other people's otaku rooms made me more determined to start on this childhood dream of mine. While I did have some lingering doubts, like, I'm already in my early 30s, am I too old for this? I'm also living in a tiny apartment in the city, so space is an issue. Plus, my Asian upbringing telling me in the back of my mind not to spend money on these quote-quote useless things. But seeing all these people happily surrounded by their favorite items, I thought, I'll never be as young as I am now. Plus, I have some adult money to spare. At first it started slow. I was only hunting online for the clamp exhibition goods that were sold out during my trip, and that was how I found Mercari and proxy services. And things kinda started snowballing from there. Then I got into anime figure content, fell into that rabbit hole, did plenty of research, deliberated over whether to take the plunge, made a tier list, watched unhaul videos to de-influence myself, and well, you can probably guess what still inevitably happened. I became obsessed with figure hunting for several months, constantly checking Mercari and AmiAmi. I even started checking out local figure and second-handed shops with a face mask on in case I run into people I know. I even created an MFC account to keep track of stuff on my wish list. So, with the new year upon us, I want to use this video to reflect on my purchases. Like, what were my top 5 favorite items? I also want to go over the mistakes and regrets I had, lessons learned, what changes I will be making in 2026, and my collection goals for this new year. To start, I first want to do a general overview of all of my purchases this year. What do I have to show for after a year of collecting? Going through and counting everything that I got in the past year, I don't think I'll be tallying up the costs. I don't want to know how much money I spent on paper and plastic. Plus, there are a few merch that I got from blind bags that I've already sold in the past year, and those I didn't include in account. Still, this is a lot for 12 months, and honestly I'm kind of impressed that I've managed to keep most of these stored away in my tiny room. I will say though, putting them in categories has led to some pretty eye-opening realizations. Let's start with the figures I got. As I mentioned earlier, I really did a 180 on anime figures, going from completely uninterested to scouring the internet to learn more about them. From this list, I can see that for the first year of figure collecting, I basically ended up going in the direction of purchasing smaller and more affordable figures, which in my defense, I think is natural considering my current small space and my initial inner struggle with spending too much on decorative plastic. And the result, 14 in a year. 14 seems a lot? But then again, I'm not quite sure if the 2 Great Ace Attorney Kokeshi dolls really count as figures, though they are categorized as such in MFC. I do find it a little alarming though that while I had reasoned with myself in the beginning to not get into prize figures and Nendoroids, I wanted to strive for fewer quality pieces rather than numerous affordable trinkets. I've ended up with 3 of each, plus 1 adorable arts. Still, I don't really regret the ones I've gotten, except maybe 1. I think simply because even for my impulse purchases, I always watched unboxings and read reviews before I pulled the trigger. My future self might think different, but for now, I love all the figures I've collected. Well, there's not much regret. I do have anxiety now on taking care of them through the hot and humid summer, and protecting their boxes from bugs. Plus, it just occurred to me that 5 of my figures wear white, the hardest color to take care of. Also, even though there are a lot of Nendoroids and smaller figures, their boxes really do take up quite some space. The case I store them in now is actually half full, so before I move to a bigger and more appropriate place for figures, I think I might slow down a bit this year. I'm not surprised that the most I bought were paper merch and prints. I literally have a file in my laptop that I've had since middle school, where I collected my favorite screen caps and images from anime and manga. Granted, some of these paper goods were freebies or bonuses that came with other merch, but I think it comes down to the fact that a lot of postcards came in sets. I do love all the postcards I got though. Good thing the postcard holder I got from Muji holds 264. I like that it feels like I'm curating my own little personal art book or album, and I do enjoy flipping through it. Where I do and should draw the line though is with the shikishi and the wall art. My problem with shikishi is that they come in all these different sizes. Their thickness means they take up more space as compared to postcards, and they get damaged super easily. I think another reason I'm not vibing with them as much is due to this folder. I think I might enjoy them more once I get a proper container for these mini ones. But going into 2026 and the future, I'm going to be extra selective on the shikishi I buy and won't be actively looking for more unless I really love the art or I can't find the same print in other forms of merch. Another item I won't be collecting going forward are large wall art like posters. In fact, I wasn't really planning on collecting 4 out of the 5 posters I currently have. I'll address them in the mistake section. I also have second thoughts about the one poster I had bought intentionally. I think my biggest concern is that even if I do get more space in the future and am able to have a dedicated otaku room, I don't know if I enjoy having my wall covered in too many prints. Since while I do enjoy looking at maximalist rooms and even admire them, I personally can't imagine myself living in them. I'm not a minimalist, but I also can't live with too much visual clutter. There's also the fact that as a closet otaku, would I be emotionally brave and comfortable enough to hang up large anime posters? Well, what is done, so all I can do now is wait until I have the space and see how I actually feel when I start decorating then. How much wall art does a girl need? Another thing that shocked me was the amount of clear files that I've collected within the past year. Ever since I saw people framing their clear files like art, I thought it'd be a good idea to collect clear files with beautiful print like the ones from the Climb exhibition. While I meant to accumulate them slowly, I've somehow filled over half of the pockets of my clear file holder. Again, how much wall art am I collecting? I do like my current collection though. They don't cost much and the prints look high quality. Like with the postcards, it feels like I'm curating my own art book. Plus, I don't have to worry about them as much as with paper merch when it comes to humidity. And unlike posters, they're easier to store, display, and switch out. Going forward though, I think I just need to continue to be selective with the ones I am purchasing since I am running out of space in my folder. While I was expecting to collect prints, paper merch, books, clear files, and etc., I was not expecting to have amassed the amount of rubber charms and cam badges that I had. Seriously? Double digits? How did this happen? At the beginning of my journey, I did buy a set of D Greyman badges and Ginpachi Sensei rubber charms, and told myself that'd be the end of it. But these little things seem to creep in and pile up. I find them when I'm walking around secondhand stores, in local capsule machines, and is it just me or have they really been packaging nostalgia and selling them to us millennials these past few years? There's Slayer's 30th anniversary, Gundam Wing 30th anniversary, Detective Conan also entering its 30th anniversary year. Not a good time for millennial wallets. I think the fact that because they're cheap and small and come in so many nice designs, makes it super easy for me to purchase them without thinking. I mean, the chibi forms are so cute. Also, the art on these cam badges, especially the shiny, sparkly ones, really get to you. Otakus are drawn to holographic designs like moths to a flame, okay? But really, what do I do with all these cam badges and rubber charms? Although each individual one is small and expensive, they do add up in terms of space and money. I've seen people hang them up with hooks and magnets for decoration, but then again, how much wall art does a girl need? There will always be more cute rubber charms and beautiful cam badges in the future, so I've decided to set a physical limit. Last year, to store my growing charm collection, I bought these Muji folders and these sheets with pockets in them. So my limit will be I can only buy as much as these pockets can hold. No refills. Based on this overview, I think since I just started collecting, I kinda let myself get carried away a bit, especially with the less expensive items. So going into 2026, I want to be more mindful when purchasing these small things by always keeping the big picture in mind, such as what I envision my ideal otaku room to look like in the end, and by keeping track of all my otaku purchases on an Excel sheet. I did make several mistakes at the very beginning of my collecting journey, and I hope by sharing them, those of you who are just starting can avoid them as well. One of the first mistakes I made was not shopping around enough. At the beginning of my journey, I had just discovered Mercari and proxy services, so that was my main hunting ground. I was typing in my favorite series titles, which, by the way, if you're using Mercari Japan for the first time, searching with the original Japanese titles will always give you better results. You can copy the title name on Wikipedia, and you can include other keywords via Google Translation. Anyways, back to the story. I was on Mercari, and I saw these Degrayman cam badges where all the characters had cat ears. Cat ears! Apparently, these were merch from a pop-up cafe that happened in 2024 where all of the money earned was donated to a cat shelter. They even had a Tim Campy cat toy. Literally a combination of two of my favorite things, Degrayman and cats. I started hunting for a set of my own, and since Bai charges each individual purchase with a handling fee, I was specifically looking for sellers selling at least two as a set. Why do I need two different cam badges of the same character image? Well, I think they look super aesthetic together, okay? Alan's set was especially rare on the site, and a few listings there were pricey, but since these were originally sold as blind bags, I figured it made sense for the seller to price the item higher if the probability of getting them wasn't high to begin with. Lo and behold, a few months later when I was into figures, I was going through Ami's items for sale when I saw a box of these very same Degrayman cam badges. I didn't even know that Ami sold character merch like this, so apparently, like the Clamp exhibition, these cafe events also have a post-event sale online for people who weren't physically able to go to the event. Basically, I could have bought the whole box of cam badges cheaper, brand new, and not second-hand, with no proxy fees, and had the complete set. I had ended up not getting Link's set since the costs were adding up. So guys, always remember to shop around. Another mistake I made, in fact, several times, was not checking the dimensions. I don't know, maybe I'm stupid and this is not a common mistake people make, but I sometimes just don't remember to check the fine print. This happened during this very same Degrayman haul where I bought these jump square clear files thinking they were your regular A4, only to find out that they're B5 when I received them, much smaller than I'd have liked. While that wasn't such a big deal, I later made an even bigger mistake when I bought these clear posters of Kanda and Alan. Now this wasn't completely my fault because the proxy that I bought from had them listed on their own website, where I swear I saw them listed as A6. It was also my first time buying clear posters too, so I didn't double check. Well, I was in for a surprise for sure when I got these. Where the heck am I going to put these giant A3 posters? So guys, don't be like me. Always read the fine print, details, dimensions, everything. Last but not least is giving into FOMO. Buying something because everyone is hyped about or excited about despite not being 100% in love with the product. This led to my first figure regret, which was getting the Ichiban Kuji of Gintoki. There was a lot of hype on the internet over its quality for a prize figure, and as I saw the listings on Mercari slowly disappear, I bought it despite it not being my favorite figure of Gintoki. Another example, December 2025, I ended up buying a set of A2 posters at the My Hero Academia exhibition. I originally had no intention of getting them, but there was a lot of hype surrounding them and a lot of scalpers were selling them overpriced online. So it felt like a missed opportunity not to pick them up when I could get them in person. I don't wholly regret these as much as the Degrayman clear posters, since they do look fantastic. But for a closet otaku who still doesn't know how she feels about having too much anime art on her walls, I can't help but feel this might be a mistake my future self will have to handle. I did win a few FOMO battles though. I am proud of myself for canceling 2 Link Nendoroids when they came up for pre-order. I don't know what happened last year, but all these three had releases. And so I had all three on pre-order since people on Reddit and MFC were hyped over them. But in the end, I did come to my senses. Since I've only actually ever played Breath of the Wild, I had no emotional ties to the other two. After canceling them, it felt like a weight was off my shoulders, and just getting the one I really wanted was the right move in the end. Would I regret this when I do eventually play Majora's Mask and Wind Waker? Maybe, but for now I'm happy with the one Link that I have. Plus he's got the little horse. Another battle I won was resisting the hype and temptation to pre-order the gorgeous Giyu by Alter. Yes, I believe the aftermarket of this figure will be crazy after its re-release. And yes, the beauty of this figure did make me second-guess myself. But I've always been kind of indifferent about Demon Slayer and the characters within the series, so I feel like this isn't a figure I would love for a long time, since there's no emotional connection. And now that the pre-order date is over, I don't feel much regret, so I think I made the right decision. Now, as with all journeys, there will always be regrets along the way. I consider these not necessarily mistakes, but more of missed opportunities and sometimes just downright bad luck. Most of mine came from letting something sit in my shopping cart far too long. While it is recommended practice and the rational way of shopping, it did lead me to miss out on some items with good prices. The first of these was the Shokoku no Altair art book. It's no longer sold anywhere, so I found a used one in pretty good condition on Mercari with a pretty good price. But I got greedy when I saw an ad that there will be an upcoming Mercari coupon for free delivery fees. So I let the item sit there only for it to be bought by someone else. And when I found out it was gone, I became super desperate and ended up just ordering a used one on Amazon Japan. Even though there were no photos of the actual used product, only textual description rating it in fairly good condition. It was pricier than the one on Mercari, and I had to pay for delivery. Unfortunately, the condition was worse than I expected, and it really made me regret not acting any sooner. Still, I honestly didn't know that this art book would be this sought after, especially since the manga ended quite a while ago. So it's not necessarily a mistake I made, but just really bad luck. The next regret was seeing this Gawain scale by Alter in a local figure shop. The box was covered in dust, but he was brand new and at retail price. I knew nothing of this character. I didn't play or watch Fate Grand Order, but at that moment, I suddenly could relate to men who buy figures, just based on their looks. However, at the beginning of my figure collecting journey, I was still not psychologically ready to buy any figure above $65 US. Even if I had rationalized that I prefer getting a few skills over buying many prizes. Well, look how that turned out. He also didn't match any of the criteria I had set for myself, one of which being the figure has to be a character I actually know and love. Then, to add on to these hurdles was the fact that as a closet otaku, I was not keen to the idea of lugging back this huge box on public transport. Well, I saw him there a few more times afterwards whenever I went browsing. Until one day, a few months later, I decided if I was spending this much time deliberating over this figure, I should just get it. So I went back to the store and he was gone. Sold. I was devastated because I could not find him anywhere else locally, since it's quite rare for local figure stores to have scales that are not already pre-ordered, let alone scales by Alter. And afterwards, I could barely find him online as well. When I did come across him online, the few listings I've seen were double the retail price, despite being pre-owned or open, and that's not including shipping, which is quite expensive for such a large box. So the hunt continues. Now that we've finished with the lows, I want to talk about the highs. My top 5 favorite items I collected in 2025. This was pretty hard to narrow down since there's a lot that I love in my collection, but here are my top 5 in no particular order. The first one is Mikazuki Munechika 1/8 scale, the Awakened version by Orange Rouge. First of all, Mikazuki Munechika was the reason I got into figure collecting in the first place. I never really understood the appeal of anime figures until I saw him on someone's shelf in an otaku room tour video. Second, he's the first scale I've ever gotten. At the very beginning of my figure collecting journey, I thought it'd be better if I put off collecting scales until I had a bigger place where I could actually display them and protect them from humidity and heat. But then I saw him listed for less than his original retail price, pre-owned but unopened, and essentially almost half of the aftermarket prices I've seen of him on Mercari. It was just such a good deal I could not pass him up. So that makes him one of my best buys in 2025. Then finally, the beauty of this figure alone is enough for me to put him in the top 5. The feeling of movement for his sculpt, the details of his outfit, and the most important part, his face. This is the most beautiful figure I currently own, and I'm really looking forward to getting the normal version and maybe creating a mini shrine of him in the future. The second is the official catalog from the My Hero Academia exhibition. It's no exaggeration to say this was a book that compelled me to go to the My Hero Academia exhibition late December last year in Osaka. I'd have resigned on going to the exhibition at all due to my schedule last year, but seeing people who went to the Tokyo exhibition sharing the details of this book on social media, I knew at the very least I want to get this book in my collection. Since the anime is ending, then something serendipitous happened. My family decided our annual trip was going to be in Kyoto and Wakayama. So I had a half a day in Osaka. As a closet otaku, I struggled over how to let my family know I was ditching them for an afternoon to go to a manga exhibition. But in the end, the desire to own this book was too much. I told them I was going to a museum to see an exhibition by an illustrator, and since they wouldn't be interested, they can enjoy shopping during our half-day stop in Osaka. I'm glad I went in the end, because seeing Horikoshi's drafts in person really made me appreciate his artwork even more. This catalog essentially is a physical copy of the exhibition that I could take home with me, and is the perfect memento of the 3 hours I was there. And that's why I think it deserves to be in the top 5. Next, you'll probably see from an upcoming video, but I got a lot of merch from the clamp exhibition. But out of all the things I got, I think the frame stood out to me the most because it was unexpectedly even more beautiful in person. I'm really happy I went through the trouble of getting a proxy for this item. I couldn't help but put 2 clamp exhibition merch on here. These women just really know how to design stuff that will make you want to take out your money. This folder is special in that it was one of the few merch I actually bought at the exhibition. Most of the other stuff I wanted was sold out. And I love that it has the exhibition visual on it. It reminds me of all the good memories from my first solo Japan trip and my time at the exhibition. Plus, unlike most of my collection, this folder is something I actually actively use. I love flipping through it, and it has 20 pockets, so I'm able to collect at least 40 clear files in it. Last but not least is the most expensive figure I've ever bought. He's not in my top 5 because of the price, but because I liked him so much, it broke my psychological ceiling for figure prices. Golden Kamuy is one of my top favorite series, and although I love all the characters, Sugimoto is definitely a favorite. So when I found out that Prime 1 Studio made figures from this series, I was so excited I had him on my wish list immediately. Then I found out Sugimoto was in stock at a local store, so I went to see the figure in person, and I was floored by how gorgeous he was. The sculpt, the pose, the base, and his face. I don't know how they made him even more handsome, but it still looks like him, which is amazing if you've seen how quirky the character designs are in this series. However, the price was hiked up to almost $290 US. I don't know if it's because of the import and licensing fees, but this was way more than I'm willing to pay for a figure. Luckily, after some hunting, I found him for 29,694 yen on Mercari, unopened and with only a bit of scuff on his original carrier box. Even though he was still pricey, it was a more reasonable price for a Prime 1 Studio figure. And it just made me realize that when it's something you really, really love 100%, there's no buyer's remorse and guilt at the end of it. And this is a sentiment I hope I'll hold on to as I continue collecting. To be more picky and selective, only spending money on things that make me this happy. I've been too scared to unbox him, but he looks absolutely gorgeous from the window. And I'm already looking forward to the day when I'll own the complete manga and display him with it. Well, that wraps up my first year of collecting. Now on to 2026. So in January, I have the only anime figure I have pre-ordered this year, which is the Sennin Gumi Ginpachi Sensei figure from the Gem series by Mega House. I have some mixed feelings about this one, because as with the Ichiban Kuji figure, this is not my top favorite figure of Gintoki. Well, technically it's Ginpachi Sensei, but you know what I mean. Actually, this one is. I don't know why I really like him in glasses, but the Ginpachi Sensei was my second favorite. I also prefer the original one with the blue shirt. Why did the anime have to make his shirt pink? Why? But I simply could not justify paying the hefty aftermarket prices of these old Mega House Gintama figures. So I ended up pre-ordering this one because even if its price has also been inflated, I didn't want to regret not getting this pre-order and then have the aftermarket prices shoot up to the point that I can't afford this anymore. This is basically what happened with Takasugi. When I learned that I had missed his pre-order by an entire year because I got into figure collecting a year after his pre-order, I was so sad. But anyways, fingers crossed that the pink doesn't look too bad in person and that it doesn't turn out garish. Now, the next thing I have pre-ordered for this month is the previously mentioned set of Oron Host Club hand badges from Animate. I don't know why these are coming out in 2026. I guess the series is still popular somehow? I'm not sure, but they look lovely. So I pre-ordered them despite just saying that I was cutting back on getting cam badges. Now, in March, I have pre-ordered 3 Gundam Wing art prints. In my defense, these are slightly smaller than A4, so they won't be space hoggers. Gundam Wing was not what I had in mind when I started collecting, but the wave of nostalgia and the merch that has been coming out from the 30th anniversary project has really gotten to me, and so I now have unexpectedly gained a small growing collection of Gundam Wing merch. I'll probably show them in a later video. Last of all, in May, I have pre-ordered the Blu-rays of the final season of My Hero Academia. Was this an emotional, impulsive purchase? Yeah, it might have been, because I pre-ordered these immediately after watching the final season. I've never bought Blu-rays before because of how pricey they are, plus I don't even own a Blu-ray machine, so I don't know how I'll feel when I actually own these. They will be the first Blu-rays in my collection, and if I do enjoy them, I might consider picking up the rest of the series in the future, as well as a few Blu-rays of movies and other series that I do love. Studio Bones just really delivered, and I felt it imperative to throw my money at them. Well, space right now is still an issue for me, so collecting Blu-rays will still largely be a future project and will be done sparingly, I hope. That's all I have pre-ordered. Not a lot of items, but each of them kind of pricey. Once I put all these items on an Excel, I have a feeling I'll have to really evaluate how much otaku budget I'm allowing myself for the rest of the year. Apart from pre-orders, I'll be continuing to keep an eye on my grails, but my priorities will most likely be for Gawain and Takasugi. I'm also on the fence of whether to get Mikazuki Munechika, the regular version, now or later when I have more space. When I started collecting, there was a lot of pre-owned, unopened listings of him everywhere, and I often see people selling him on my figure collection. So I thought I could wait, but lately I've noticed the listings have been dwindling and it's making me a bit nervous. Either way, I'm already running out of room in my bookcase and my shelves, so unless it's a high priority figure or personal grail, I don't think I'll be getting as many figures this year. Other merch I have my eye out on are the XXX Holic merch from recent collaborations and events. Probably due to the return of the manga serialization. It's my favorite clamp work, so I'm quite excited to see more merch of it coming out. I also am thinking of collecting something of Hana Kimi, and maybe from Slayers, since there's barely any merch from these series. But unlike Gundam Wing, so far I haven't really been drawn to any of the merch that has come out. I'll still be keeping an eye out for any news of new merch though. Also, anyone excited about Persona's 30th anniversary? I'm preparing my wallet for their 30th anniversary merch as well. Finally, one of my main goals this year is to start hunting for a new place. A place big enough to have an individual room or at least an area to display my growing collection. Ideally, it'd be a place I own, but with how housing prices are in the city, I might have to settle for a rental. I'm not sure if I'll successfully find a place within the year, but at least it's a start. Reviewing my collection from 2025 has led me to see what I really like: paper merch and graphics. It's also made me realize the things I simply don't care for. For example, acrylic cards. For acrylic cards, I've only bought 3 different packs of 2 during my year of collecting, and each time I was pretty underwhelmed by how flimsy they are and the print quality. I can't explain why paper cards are okay, but acrylic cards just don't do it for me. Also, my luck was mid to bad when it came to blind bags and blind boxes in 2025. The ones I had gotten, I've mostly sold. Therefore, this year, I'll be trying my best not to buy any more random merch, unless it's one where I love all the options. And that was my year in review of 2025. Anyone else like me just starting out on their collection journey? I wanted to finish this video before January ended, but I got pretty sick during the first half of the month, so fingers crossed I get this uploaded in time before the month ends. Last year, I actually filmed some of my hauls and unboxings, and even created an unfinished video where I was deliberating over which figures to buy. I thought it'd be fun to document my journey in video form just as the YouTubers I watched did. So although it's already 2026, I'll be sharing some of these videos on this channel in the near future. So stay tuned if you want a more in-depth look at some of the things I've purchased in my first year of collecting. If there are any questions about or stuff you'd like to see from my collection, feel free to leave a comment below as well. Although this video was all about collecting, this channel will not be limited to just sharing stuff I buy. It's more of an outlet for a closet otaku like me to talk about the things I love and make silly videos sharing my thoughts on anime, manga, and games. I hope you enjoy watching me just rant about these things. But if you've made it this far into this video, thank you so much, and I hope to see you in the next one. Bye bye!